So good morning dear students. Narito muli tayo sa ating klase para matuto ng iba't ibang mathematical lessons. So for today, ang topic na ating pag-aaralan is all about factoring. So during our previous discussion, we already had discussed the different types of factoring. There are 6 types of factoring. First is factoring common monomial factor. Second, difference of two squares. Third is perfect square trinomial. Yun yung pinag-aralan natin last time. Fourth is the general trinomial. 5 is the sum and difference of two cubes. And the 6 is by grouping. So during the previous lessons na i-discuss na natin yung common monomial factor. Alam na natin na kapag may common monomial factor sa isang polynomial, pwede mong ilabas yan at i-factor out yun. Difference of two squares. So, difference of two squares. Kapag ang dalawang polynomial ay square, you can simply factor them out. Next is the perfect square trinomial. Ito yung previous discussion natin. Napakadali nito. Now, we are on the general trinomial. Last time, we discussed about the perfect square trinomial. Paano natin ipapactor ang perfect square trinomial? So, nakita naman natin napakadali kung paano mag-factor out ng perfect square trinomial. Let us have an example. Factor 6x squared plus 6x plus 9. First thing that we have to know kung trinomial, we should know if this is a perfect square trinomial. Paano natin malalaman na ito ay perfect square trinomial? Una, you need to find the square root of the first term, yung x squared. Second is you need to find the square root of the last term, which is 9. Ang square root ng first term is x. Ang square root ng last term is 3. X and 3. Once you multiply x times 3 times 2 at lumabas yung nasa gitna, which is 6x, it means it is a perfect square trinomial. So, subukan natin. X times 3 times 2 is equal to 6x. So therefore, this is a perfect square trinomial. Ngayon, kapag ang isang polynomial is a perfect square trinomial, napakadali lang i-factor out ito. You just need to find the square root of the first term, and then you need to find the square root of the second term. So ang square root ng first term is x. Ang square root ng second term is 3. So all you have to do is to find the square root of the first term and then find the square root of the last term, and then lagyan mo ng parenthesis, lagyan mo ng x, yung square root ng first term, plus 3, which is the square root of the second, and then lagyan mo dyan ng square. So our answer is x plus quantity x plus 3 squared. Okay? This is a review up. We need to factor out x squared plus 8x plus 16. So, ang una nating hanapin uli, we need to determine if this is a perfect square trinomial. Alright, find the square root of the first term. The square root ng first term is x. Ang square root ng last term is 4. 2 times x times 4 is equal to 8x. 8x, yung nasa gitna. Kapag nakuha mo yon, therefore this is a perfect square trinomial. Kapag perfect square trinomial, ang pag-factor out dyan, just get the square root of the first term, and that is x. Ayan, isulat na natin. And then the square root of the last term, which is 4. So, lagyan mo lang ng parenthesis yan. Pati yung sign nila pareho na. So, x plus 4, then close parenthesis, then square. Yan na ang factor. That is our answer. Ang dali, di ba? Last example, review. Review natin ito. So, 4x squared plus 16x plus 16. So, again, paano natin ma-determine kung ito ay perfect square trinomial? Get the square root of the first term and get the square root of the last term. Pag nakuha mo yung square root ng first term at last term, i-multiply mo yun by 2. Kung lumabas yung nasa gitnang term, it means it is a perfect square trinomial. So let us try. 4x squared. 4x squared is, the square root of 4x squared is 2x. The square root of 16 is 4. So 2x plus 4, or 2x times 4 times 2 is equal to 16x. Therefore, we can say that this is a perfect square trinomial. Kapag perfect square trinomial, napakadaling i-factor. Gaya ng pinag-aralan natin last time. So, kukunin mo yung square root ng first term, 2x, plus the square root of the last term, 4. And then close bracket, square. So, this is our answer. This is the factor of this perfect square trinomial. 2x plus 4. Alright? So, napakadali. This is a review class. Napakadali ng pag-factor ng trinomial. Kung ito ay perfect square, ha? Napakadaling pag-factor, I should say, ng trinomial kung ito ay perfect square trinomial. Ngayon, how about if this is not a perfect square trinomial? Paano mo ipapactor yan? Pwede pa rin natin ipactor yan. Although hindi siya perfect, parang buhay natin. Hindi perfect. Pero pwede nating maayos. Meron tayong problema, hindi perfect ang solution, pero meron pa rin ang solution. Ganon din sa mathematics. Mai-apply natin lahat ng nalalaman natin sa mathematics sa real life. So, how can we factor a trinomial which is not a perfect square trinomial? Okay? So, this is our topic, general trinomial. How do we factor general trinomial? Alright. So, the first thing that we will study here is a general trinomial with a leading coefficient of 1. 1 lang muna. Hindi pa tayo gagamit ng complicated example. So let us have an example. Factor d squared plus 5d. Factor d squared plus 5d plus 6. Okay? Let us see if this is a perfect square trinomial. Kasi if this is a perfect square trinomial, pwede natin gamitin yung way or yung method ng pag-factor using the perfect square trinomial. Alright, what is the square root of the first term? D squared. D. Correct? What is the square root of the last term? 6. This is not a perfect square. So, ang method na gagamitin natin dito ay factoring general trinomials. Alright? So, the first thing that we have to do para malaman natin ang factor ng given trinomial na ito is ililista natin ang lahat ng factors ng last term. Since the leading coefficient is 1. Ano ang factor ng 6? Ito lang titignan natin. So, ang mga factor niyan is, look at this. 6 times 1. 6 times 1 is 6. Next, 3 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6. Next, negative 6 times negative 1. That is positive 6. Correct? Next, negative 3 times negative 2. So these are the factors of this given trinomial. So next thing that we have to do is form your list of possible factors. Find the pair whose sum is 5. Ganito yan, class. From this given factors, hanapin mo ang factor na pag pinag-add mo sila, lalabas ay 5. Subukan natin. 6 times 1 is 6. Correct? How about 6 plus 1? That is 7. So, hindi natin pwedeng gamitin yon. Next, 3 times 2 is 6. Factor niya yon. How about 3 plus 2. 3 plus 2 is 5. Therefore, nakuha natin yung nasa gitna. Okay? So, yung 3 and 2, yun ang magiging factor na gagamitin natin to factor this trinomial. Alright. So, subukan natin yung negative 6 and negative 1. Negative 6 times negative 1 is 6. How about negative 6 plus negative 1? That is negative 7. So, hindi natin pwedeng gamitin. Negative 3 times negative 2 is 6. But negative 3 plus negative 2 is negative 5. So, hindi rin natin pwedeng gamitin. So, our factor, since ang nakuha natin dito is 3 and 2, na pag pinag-add mo sila ay magiging 5, which is in the middle term. So, yan ang magiging factor natin. The factor of this given trinomial d squared plus 5d plus 6 is equal to the quantity d plus 3 times the quantity d plus 2. So, this is our answer. This is the factor of the given trinomial. Alright, let us have another example. Factor k squared plus 3k minus 28. So, titignan natin, is this a perfect square trinomial? Yung first term, which is k squared, of course, that's a perfect square. How about yung negative 28? Yung negative 28, hindi yan perfect square. So, hindi natin pwedeng gamitin. Now, the first thing na dapat natin gawin, since we found out that this is not a perfect square trinomial, at hindi natin pwedeng gamitin yung method to factor a perfect square trinomial, hindi natin pwedeng gamitin yon. So, we will use our knowledge in factoring general trinomials. So, first thing that we have to do is we must list all the factors of negative 28. Kapag nailista na natin yung lahat ng factors ng negative 28, hahanapin natin dyan kung alin ang factor na kapag pinag-add mo sila, it will come out to negative 3. Alright? So, list all the factors of negative 28. So, these are the factors of negative 28. 7. 7 times negative 4 is negative 28. Next, negative 7 times 4 is also negative 28. Next, 14 times negative 2 is negative 28. Negative 14 times 2 is negative 28. 28 times negative 1 is still negative 28. And negative 28 times 1 is still negative 28. So, alin dito ang factor na gagamitin natin para ma-factor natin ang given trinomial. Alright? So, hanapin natin which of these factors of negative 28 can be added to get a sum of positive 3. So, unahin natin yung 7 and negative 4. 7 plus negative 7 times negative 4 is negative 28. And 7 plus negative 4 is 3. So, nakuha na natin yung tamang sagot agad. Di ba? So, ano ang magiging sagot niya? So, our factor will be equal to k plus 7 times the quantity k minus 4. So, this will be the answer. So, these are the examples on how we can factor a trinomial which is not a perfect square trinomial. To factor trinomials with 1 as the numerical coefficient of the leading term, first, factor the leading term of the trinomial and write these factors as leading terms of the factors. Letter B, list down all the factors of the last term. Letter C, identify which factor pair sums up to the middle term. Then, letter D, write each factor in the pairs as the last term of the binomial factors. Alright? So, bibigyan ko kayo ng quiz dito sa ating pinag-aralan sa umagang ito. para matutunan ninyo at malaman ninyo kung gaano na ba ang nalalaman ninyo all about factoring general trinomials. So these are the problems that I will give to you. In your activity sheet, factor the following trinomials. Alright, this is 4 items. Lahat silang leading coefficient nila is 1. So napakadali nito. Hanapin nyo lang yung factor ng last term. After nyan, titignan nyo kung pag pinag-add nyo yung factors na yon, kung lalabas ba yung nasa middle term. So sa susunod na discussion natin, ang di-discuss ko naman sa inyo, is all about factoring general trinomials na yung leading coefficient niya, hindi lang 1. It can be 3, 6, 4, etc. So this time, you need to answer this in your activity sheet. Okay? So, for your assignment also, these are the questions that you have to answer. Answer the following questions in your own words. Write your answer. Write your answer in your activity sheets. Number 1. 2 questions lang ito. Number 1. How did you factor trinomials? Which is not a perfect square, trinomial. Second, how is it important to identify the leading coefficient of the expression? Ang leading coefficient, yung number na katabi ng literal coefficient o yung variable natin. So, that's all for now. Sana may natutunan kayo sa ating video tungkol sa mathematics sa oras na ito. At sana maging willing kayo na mag-aral ng mathematics. Alright? So, that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day, everyone.